Alright guys, so we have an interesting announcement over here on the JP side of things, and it's not just, oh, Christmas 2024 is coming out. We know this is coming out, and it's not gonna be, oh my goodness guys, could it be a lotto? It's most assuredly going to be a lotto. It's pretty much always a lotto for Christmas. That's just kind of the spirit of giving, right? They want to give us a bunch of rewards and whatnot, unless you're over here on NA where we have a limited lotto, but, you know, we cope on our part for thinking that maybe they would have, you know, lifted that restriction on us. But one thing that I wanted to talk about is this participation requirement right here. You might remember, if you're an NA player, we just got Morganfest and they had the same requirement. You had to finish Lost Belt 6 if you wanted to read the story. Now, you could participate if you had cleared Fuyuki, because they don't want to gatekeep being able to actually play the event and get the rewards. But if you wanted to read the very, very short story that featured some Lost Belt 6 characters, you did have to be up to date. That way they don't have to explain like what these characters' deals are, you know, what their motivations are, why they act a certain way, right? Even though, again, it was very limited, they wanted you to kind of already have a grasp for those characters. So I'm assuming they could save time on not having to write an additional chapter or an extra 2 minutes of dialogue explaining who is what. So with that being said, I wanted to do this as kind of an interesting video to kind of get some thoughts in the comment section down below, because I think I have some ideas for who we could do for Christmas characters. One of them is very obvious, but some of you guys also have really good ideas for why X character might work as a Christmas servant. So I thought we could use this as kind of like a little discussion video as to who we might get, because you will notice over here, they don't have any of the Lost Belt 6 characters as event-related servants. So I'm wondering if they're hiding that for a specific character that's going to appear by themselves, which might be a trigger for who we're going to get as the character that's going to be the Christmas servant. And if you're going to be sitting there in denial being like, oh, how do we know we're going to be getting a Santa servant? Well, the direction that they have been going is rerunning some type of banner, right? Like just tossing out some limited servant that's, you know, hasn't been around in quite a while. They throw them out there, but then they give us a Santa servant. That's what they did last year, where they still gave us Santa Nemo for, you know, the festivities and everything, as we do usually get a servant for at least summer and Halloween. Those are usually assured, although this summer was a little bit weird because technically the free-to-play for summer was locked behind a main story chapter, but technically we still got one, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. I think it was a little bit lazy, but that's a discussion for a different video. But you'll notice none of them are here. The only person that is from Lost Belt 6 technically is Koyenskaya, because, you know, spoiler alert, Koyenskaya is in every single Lost Belt. She's always perking her head around trying to cause some type of mischief or whatnot, but that's the only character here. They don't have anybody there, so I think you can pretty much just go from the group of Fay characters we have over here. But this doesn't include people like, say, Percival, who technically is a part of Lost Belt 6, even though it's like not really Percival, just like Gareth is not really Gareth in Lost Belt 6. I think they could still be apt servants you could choose for the Santa servant. In fact, I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards them, as much as, you know, obviously I would love a Santa Morgan. I think that would go absolutely hard in the paint, but I don't know if it makes the most sense if none of these characters are featured as event bonus servants. Again, they could be hiding it. They might not want to spoil who the Santa servant's going to be, but I still think you would throw, like, you know, Morgan Sith Barghest on there if, say, we were getting a Santa Morgan, or if we were getting a Santa Melusine, you would still have the other guys on there. Although, I guess in the case of Melusine, she's kind of the most independent of the group, because she works with, try to not spoil Lost Belt 6 for people that haven't read it, a third party in Lost Belt 6 will say. She works with them predominantly and is just kind of, I guess, tangentially related to the other Fay Knights and Morgan. She kind of just works with them as kind of like, you know, I guess a good image for the workplace, I suppose. I'm trying to dance around spoilers here, but maybe if you were doing a Santa Melusine, it could make sense why the other ones weren't event related, as many people can probably just tell from like fan art and stuff. You know, if you're going to do a Santa Sith or a Santa Morgan, you kind of have to have them. They have that relationship where you gotta toss them in there. You know, one is not going to be in the event and the other one is going to be in there. Same thing for someone like Habitrot. As much as I think it'd be really cool if we got a Santa Habitrot, I don't think you could really have her in the event and just not feature Morgan in some capacity. I think that'd be really weird. Another servant that I think could actually work for the Santa gimmick is Oberon. And you might think I'm a little bit crazy, but I think it could work in the fact that, you know, Oberon normally, and this is kind of getting into some spoilers, so plug your ears if you haven't read Lost Belt 6 or you don't know I guess calling it the big twist now is like so hard to do because Oberon's been out for such a long time on JP and now NA, but plug your ears, you know, Oberon for his first and second ascension kind of being this good fellow guy who's like this jolly lad, I think could work for, you know, kind of like a first, you know, through third ascension that we normally get, and then maybe we could get a costume for that, you know, Santa free-to-play servant that kind of uses his final ascension where he's more of the Grinch, a little bit more grouchy. I think that could work, and he's not actually technically related to anybody else. You could have Oberon be an event servant over here and not have any of them there because Oberon doesn't like any of them, right? He's not really buddy-buddy with any of them, so you don't have to have them appear. Or maybe say someone like Morgan, I could see at the very end, you know, Oberon has some, I don't know, Grinch Stole Christmas style plot. Who knows what they're going to do with this, right? It's one of the seasonal events. It's always super wacky and out of left field. So maybe he does some plan, it fails, and then Morgan at the very end, you know, the black screen, and then Morgan's like, and thus was the tale of how this dingus over here failed to steal Christmas. Something along those lines, right? Taking on the role that she normally does of kind of just sitting in the back and observing, you know, I think that really could work. I think Percival and Gareth could work because, again, in Lost Belt 6, and again, we're kind of still getting into like spoiler territories, it's not actually Percival and Gareth. They're actually just characters that belong in that Lost Belt that happen to take the form of, say, Gareth or Percival. And I think Gareth actually has slight sprite changes to kind of signify them. Like, I think she has like little horn things that make her a little bit different from the normal Gareth sprite. And what like Percival has like the black hair, I think, like his hair goes black as he uses more of his abilities and whatnot. Regardless, you could use them, and maybe they don't have to have any of the Fay characters as event-related servants. But again, it is a little bit weird because if Percival's going to be in the event, you think Gareth would be in it as well because they are kind of more buddy-buddy now because, well, their servant forms are featured in Lost Belt 6, so it's like, oh, I guess they kind of get along, but they're still not technically related. Like, Percival's, you know, the previous super OP knight of the Knights of the Round Table before we get people like Lancelot and then Galahad, and Gareth is one of Gawain's siblings. But even then, it's like Gawain's not featured as an event-related servant, but Lancelot is. I think that's kind of messed up if you make Gareth the Santa servant, considering, well, what happens between Lancelot and Gareth. I mean, you can go read Gareth's, you know, Bond descriptions if you want to find out more, but it's pretty brutal, just to say the least. So I don't think it's going to be Gareth because that just seems a little bit messed up to not have her brother there, but have Lancelot be an event-featured servant. So I might be leaning more towards Percival in that respect. I think having this big friendly guy be a Santa servant is kind of in line with people we have because, I mean, all of our Santa servants are pretty jolly, happy people, except maybe Karna, but Karna's still a nice guy. He's just more, I guess, of a straight shooter, I suppose, right? Same thing for Nemo. Nemo's a nice enough guy. He's just more of a straight shooter. I mean, even people like Salter, who are classified as like lawful evil normally, are like, well, I want to spread good joy and cheer, right? So I think Percival is who I'm kind of leaning for if I'm trying to be more logical about it, as much as I would really like to get, I mean, a Santa Barghest, Santa Sith, Santa Melusine, Santa Morgan. Those are all cooks, in my opinion. But either Oberon, and if they really wanted to be super based about it, they could make it like a baby version of the summonable Oberon to maybe help out people that don't have him. Because, you know, 90++ content is getting more and more ridiculous. This is kind of a cope on my part. You make a slightly free-to-play version of it for people like, I don't know, me on JP who don't have that. I know I would personally appreciate that a lot. And then maybe for some, you know, more traditional setups, you could maybe slot him in there. Maybe he gives some type of like power mod bonus like Castoria and Koyanskaya do. Maybe it's like a 30%. It's not like super large. Who knows what they could do with that. But yeah, aside from that, I can't really think of anybody else that they would want to do if they, like, maybe this is just a red herring. It has nothing to do with this. I've been wanting a Santa Gilgamesh for the longest time. I think that'd be absolutely funny. And some people would say, well, Gilgamesh doesn't give out gifts and stuff. You know, Gilgamesh is a really selfish guy. But, you know, if you've played some of, like, the extra games or you've read some of his interludes in FGO, he's actually kind of a chill guy. They've definitely mellowed him out a lot more from Fate Zero and especially Fate Stay Night, where bro was bugging, for lack of a better term. I think that could definitely be really interesting because it's one of those things where, like, Gilgamesh has, like, infinite wealth, and it's like, oh, he's like, I'm not going to give people free stuff, but it's like, oh, so you're saying the king is too broke to be Santa? And he's like, immediately you can already see the dialogue writing itself, where he would just be like, no, let me show you. Now, hold on, I ain't broke. I'm going to give everybody gifts and stuff along those lines. So I think that could be, like, a really cool out of left field thing. Aside from that, I mean, there are other characters that I think from Chaldea we could get that I would really like to see as Santas. Like, if Citronine makes a servant debut as a Santa servant, I think that's an absolute cook. I think we could also at some point get a Santa mash. I mean, technically we have a summer mash. We have actually a couple of them because of the outfits, but I think if they're going to go along those lines, they would just give her some kind of Christmassy type of outfit. So I don't think we'd be getting her. I think a Santa Gordolf as like a servant debut would be really, really funny. I would absolutely love that. I mean, you know, Santa, Gordolf kind of have similar physical attributes, so maybe that one could work. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think I've kind of given enough things to work with that maybe you hear what I'm saying and you're like, oh, you know what, I could kind of springboard off that. And maybe you don't agree with what I'm saying, but it gives you another idea, and I love reading those in the comment section down below. So with all that being said, this is just a shorter video that I wanted to put out here, just kind of speculating on this because I pretty much play the game for the lore bits, and I pretty much play for the story exclusively. And so I love speculating on these things. I love yapping about FGO 24/7. That's why we be streaming FGO. It's just hours of streaming FGO and getting to yap about it. But if you found the video to be enjoyable, I appreciate a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Helps me out more than you know. There's all this stuff in the description as well. You know, if you want to talk to people about FGO, or not even that, you want to talk about the Hoyo games, Arknights, Dokkan. We recently re-added the Bleach Brave Souls channel in there as well. I know that's kind of a random game to add, but I got back into it pretty heavily. So if you want to talk about all sorts of other games or just games in general, we got all that in the Discord if you are just interested in that. But with all that being said, I think I'm done yapping over here. I've gone through all the limited notes that I have, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace late, guys.